Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. And we have the amazing Arif. I actually don't think he realizes I have a copy of his book in my hand. He's just released a book called Storyseller. And I'm admittedly only the first chapter in, I have said this, but it's on my to-do list to read. And I actually hadn't realized that Arif was writing this book when I invited him, hi Julie, to come and join us to do a webinar about storytelling. So if you haven't got the book and you do enjoy the webinar, then obviously I do highly recommend it. And I think we were just saying, myself and Arif, how there seems to be quite a blocker sometimes with retail in spas and what those blockers are. And I think a natural way of selling is what sometimes is missing, because we almost try and feel we have to force it. So personally, someone who's run spas for years, I'm really interested to learn more, because I think we do need a different tactic on how we improve retail sales. So I will hand over to you, Arif.
Thank you so
much. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
No, thank you. Hi everyone, and thank you so much for having me. That was such a lovely, warm introduction by Sarah. So, you know, it's excellent. And yeah, I do understand. I really do appreciate the challenges that we have within our spas, within our therapists, and you know, it's one of those conversations that we have touched upon for the last 30 years, and we still just haven't managed to kind of bring it to fruition. And, you know, at the end of the day, what we're doing when we are recommending retail products is we are recommending extending another level of service to our clients. That's it. That's all we have to look at. You know, retail has such a bad rap. It's almost like a dirty word in our industry, especially with our younger therapists. And we say retail and they shudder and they shake in the corner, and they, you know, they don't want to have anything to do with it. And I'm not just tarring everyone with the same brush, but that's the general consensus. And I've been really lucky because my background has been coming from Harrods, Selfridges, Liberty. I've guest presented on QVC, and I really do understand how sales and retail can come into fruition, but equally, they haven't got to be hard sales. And it is all about creating a moment of connection with your audience and with your client. But also, one of the most powerful tools to use this is storytelling, and the power and the art form of stories, which most brands around the world, when they find out how lucrative storytelling is, for example, Nike, Dove, you know, when they create the most incredible campaigns, they make you feel something and they connect you to a brand or to a product. So you don't actually see the monetary value, you see what its worth is to you. And actually, it's a very simple tool that we can utilize within our spas, because holistically, we do it as a practice ourselves within our own environments when it comes to treatment, or when it comes to our therapists and their specialization. When it comes to then talking about that within the same breath about a physical, tangible product that is aftercare, we kind of lose all resolve. So hopefully today we're going to take you through, and I'm going to take you through this. And it was really kind of Sarah to talk about Storyseller, the book, which is my love letter in collaboration with Nicola Rowley to storytelling and using it in sales. So if you have a chance, have a read. It is a wonderful read. So today we are going to be looking at beyond the shelf. And that's a really, really important word. And I frame language as such a powerful and viable tool, because language is the most incredible tool that we have within our own remits. So when we think about beyond the shelf, we think about maximizing our reach, and we think about how more and how best can we optimize product sales from off the shelf, but be creating an incredible user experience for our clients and for our guests. And the way that we're going to do this is by driving storytelling into our spas to maximize our retail. And you're going to hear me harping on about this a lot of times. But one of my favorite things to say is, it is all about emotional connection. That's all it is. Retail sales is a conversation between two people. And when you build trust through emotional connection, you can sell a product. So without further ado, hopefully you guys can all see my screen. So education is the foundations of retail. I know it might not sound it. There is no magic formula to sell. It is about having ownership. It's about having full understanding of your products and your assortment. But also it is about understanding who you are as an individual or your team and that sense of authority that they have to drive their clients to make the correct purchasing decisions, but equally within that, for them to feel as though they are confident enough to make those recommendations. And through today, we're going to look at how we're going to use storytelling to maximize retail sales. And this is dedicated to anyone in the industry who is a spa professional, a manager, a trainer, or a therapist who wants to boost the way that they understand retail or their team understand retail, but equally to do it with care. So it's all about building that emotional connection. It's equally about empowering people who perhaps feel unsure around retail, but to understand that this is a client journey. We are creating emotional impact and we are creating a resonance with our clients. So the product comes at the end of the conversation, but the most important conversation is how do we build that emotional connection? And to understand how when we deepen our connection, we deepen the experience of the trust that we're creating between us and, of course, our clients and our guests. And we can turn an everyday product into transformation by talking to our clients and guests about how that's going to make them feel. After all, every single purchase is an emotional purchase. If you think about why you purchase, there is always a reason to solve a problem or to give you a solution. And 9 times out of 10, that is because you're not feeling a certain way about a certain situation. And the act of purchasing something makes you feel better, regardless of where it is or what industry it is. So it's important for us to understand that. Now, first of all, I want to pinpoint the fact that retail sales are struggling in spa. And it's really interesting to me when we think about retail industry, when we think about the shop floor, you can have a cold conversion, which means that someone is walking to a counter or to skincare that they previously purchased, but with no intention to buy new skincare, or perhaps to purchase a new brand. And I'm talking about within the likes of more concession-based retail environments, like your Harrods, your Selfridges, your Liberty, where you have team members that can help you drive that conversation. And when we think about this, we look at our conversion rate, and the conversion rate in retail is 40% cold, which is crazy. So if someone comes up or you're traffic stopping with a fragrance, 40% of the time you can tailor a conversation into allowing someone to sit down, have a moment, have an experience to then transform that into a purchase. And what's really interesting to note is that the average conversion rate in spa is between 3 and 12%. Now, that might sound good when we compare it to 40%. You're like, oh, okay, that's just a third or a quarter. But actually, what we need to think about is that the caliber of clients that we have within spa is directly coming to spa. They're already pre-booked, or they're coming in with an opportunity in mind to have a booking or have an appointment. So they're already warm clients. So actually creating and changing, transforming warm clients to complete hot clients and selling them a product between 3 and 12% is actually quite ghastly. And I don't say that lightly, but it is true. Time and time again, I think about the level of service that we give within our spa environments. I think about the dedication our therapists have, the amount of information that we give our clients, and that they have this whole holistic retreat, a 360-degree experience, from coming into a spa to listening to beautiful music to having the heat and the smells and the sights of the spa. And yet we still are unable to convert. Now, that is not a client problem. Unfortunately, that's a you problem or a therapist problem, because we are creating that mental block and we are looking at it from a different point of view. And we're going to look into this a little bit later as well. So nearly half of all spas in the UK, 48%, generate only 10% of their total revenue retail. And as we know, with the rise of prices and inflation, national insurance contributions increasing, we want a fair and equitable society, especially for our therapists to be paid a good level and a good salary. And the quickest way to building business and the quickest way for transforming spa is through retail sales. So if I was to give you a prime example, if you were to have 5 therapists, say for instance 5 different therapists, but you're open 7 days a week, and each one of those therapists was to sell one product at £50, That's it, per day. One product each per day at £50. That's it. And we targeted them. Okay, today, Sophia, you need to sell one product at £50. And each of the other members of staff, 5 in total, will sell the same. At the end of the year, that equates to £83,000 in turnover, which is mind-blowing. One product at £50 is crazy. Now, if we were to multiply that and say, okay, 60% of all of our clients we need to convert to retail, you are hitting £250,000 to £750,000 to £1 million turnover in retail very, very quickly, depending on your spa size. And what strikes me as an educator and working within this sector is that we do not harness that opportunity. And it comes down to the simple fact that we avoid the conversations because we don't want to deal with objections, we find it confrontational, and we have fear of rejection. These are all mindset issues that we can shift with the right tools, the right techniques, and the right education in place. But equally, most training for our therapists comes from a focus on product ingredient, not the emotional conversation that is coming from the end goal or the root cause or concern of the guest. We focus too much on this has got seaweed extract, it's got green tea, it's got hyaluronic acid, it's going to be plumping, and it's going to help with fine lines and wrinkles and vitamin C. And that's wonderful. But I'm sure you would recognize that after about 5 minutes of chanting ingredients, our clients and our guests have completely switched off, because there's only so much that ingredient can tantalize them. And when we build in storytelling, it allows us to build confidence. And equally, we focus on the emotional engagement with our client, which allows us to then move forward and sell through retail product. Now, how we do this is through the power of communication. And unfortunately, communication, I was actually having a conversation this morning with someone, and again last week, I'm also writing a piece for the European Spa Business Handbook, and there's going to be a piece all around communication, especially with generational gaps. And unfortunately today, we are finding that we have a pandemic or an epidemic of non-communicating members of staff that are so uncomfortable, should I say, but also not confident in certain scenarios. They can't even pick up a phone. They can't even build conversation because they've been brought up in a social media era where it's all about scrolling and clicking, and we've lost the value of face-to-face interaction. I was talking to someone last night about this as well, talking about daughters and children, and how in my day, I'm going to sound very old now, but in my day, we'd go out to the pub or we'd go out to the club or we would socialize. Now all they want to do is go on Snapchat. And it's crazy for me that, someone who's 15, 16 years old doesn't want to sneak out and go to the local club, but actually would rather just talk to their friends for hours on Snapchat and send emojis. And there has been a generational shift. Yet this generational shift has also shifted the way that we deal with communication. And our new generation of therapists are incredibly technically skilled. They have the most masterful fingertips and know-how of the skin and the body. And they also understand how to create incredible treatments. They're also very compassionate and client-focused. They think about what that treatment is going to do for their clients or for their guests. However, they often struggle with real-world conversation. And as I said, it is that social media habit that has created this epidemic within our industries, and most industries when we're hiring, younger caliber. And that's important because for us to want to have a new generation, teach them and keep our industry going to solidify and make it resilient, we need to teach them communication skills. And this is because they have a fear of being too salesy or saying the wrong thing. So they feel far more confident in applying product than talking about how that product is going to work to emotionally transform. Now, this isn't a failure by any measure. It's a confidence measure. And us as industry leaders need to assess this and think about what can we do tangibly to correct this within our industry, to give our team members, our therapists, to give them the tools they need to be successful, but also to allow them to bridge that gap. And that's where storytelling comes in. Now, storytelling is amazing. I'm really privileged to have been known now as the storyteller, if you like, especially with a book. I work with blue chip brands all around the world in terms of helping them with their teams, their training teams, to engage with storytelling. And it's such a vital and missing link, because intrinsically, as human beings, we are absolutely hardwired for stories. When we hear stories, our eyes light up, indeed, our brains light up, and the emotions that we feel when we connect to a story really kick in. We remember it and we feel something. And research shows that stories are 22 times more memorable than facts alone. And if that isn't the quote of the century, I don't know what is. I mean, that is so incredible. When we engage in emotional content, we also increase the ability of trust and creating connection within our own environments and within our clients and our guests. And nowadays, we are also in a stress epidemic. My good friend, Dr. Glenda Revio-Allen, talks about how everyone is always stressed all the time in terms of having time, trying to find work-life balance, working in busy cities or situations or scenarios, and the world has become so stressful. We are inundated with information constantly, and we can't always process all that information, and that turns into stress. So our clients don't just want advice, they want a way to connect, to feel a part of something bigger than themselves and allow themselves to de-stress. And that's why they come to Spa, because Spa gives them that innovative experience. Now, for us to level up what we're doing in Spa, we need to add an additional layer of storytelling, because this is how we take a conversation around retail and we talk and we transform it into an emotional conversation about aftercare and about experiences. And this doesn't replace the current expertise that we have. It just levels up, as I previously said, but also enhance it. And enhancing it is going to give us a far more tangible ability to have a unique point of difference. And especially within a spa setting where, you know, we are competing with pretty much the same kind of treatments. Of course, different spas are varying in treatments. We're always looking for innovation, but I truly believe that service and how we converse is going to differentiate the incredible spas with exceptional service from the ones who are great and fantastic, but there is that next level there. And this is what I want to educate the entirety of the industry. I think there is a missing mark with storytelling. So what actually happens beyond the shelf? Well, and there was someone who I think jumped in right at the beginning, someone who's really eager, and I didn't catch your name, and I do apologize, and I hope there's time for questions at the end. But retail doesn't actually start when the treatment ends. And I hear this time and time again. I hear that therapists don't have the right amount of time, they are too busy. And I'm quite strong in my argument. And I say, well, actually, I disagree. We have a fixed amount of blocks that we can book out in a certain day, in a schedule. That means that every guest gets this amount of time. Therefore, it doesn't matter how busy we are, because we're never going to be busier than the amount of guests we have in one day, which is denoted by the blocking and booking times that we have. I appreciate that if the spa is super busy, we feel that it's a busier environment and we want to rush to ensure we have enough time. So that's the first kind of pushback I'd like to make. I say to everyone that I sell within the consultation. I close my sale within the consultation. And the consultation is absolutely key to selling. In fact, I believe the consultation is more important than the actual treatment. And I'll give you a reason as to why. Because the consultation is that moment where you are facing client to client. It is where you are interacting and you are understanding the deeper mechanisms of your client. It is the opportunity that you build trust and emotional connection. And if someone feels as though they have me, they understand what I'm going through, then they are far more likely to repurchase or purchase on that day. Equally, when we have a typical consultation at the moment, it's usually rushed. It's 30 seconds. We want to get people on the bed, and we lose the value of that connection. And another pushback that people say is, well, someone just wants to get on the bed. They want to relax. And I say to guests or clients is, you know, I need to just go through these questions with you. I have to understand exactly what's going on because I want to deliver you the best results today. How does that sound? And instantly that appeases them and they relax. And they're like, yeah, of course, because everything is service-led. And we have to lead with our authority to ensure that we are service-led and we put everything back on our service. The amount of time we take is because of our service. The consultation is key because of the service. And that is how we build in this conversation. So retail starts the moment the client walks through the door. It's not an afterthought. It's not just when we're recommending product. It is a constant thought, and it's a constant source of direction. Now, I teach in my Retail Excellence course how we mold storytelling. And Retail Excellence, to give you an example, is a 6-month course, which is 3 modules delivered every 2 months. Because the aim is to create habitual change. It's to shift mindset. And module 1 is all about the course, storytelling, and vulnerability. That's it. We don't even go into sales, because storytelling and being sure with yourself as an individual, having that shift in mindset, being able to deal with confrontation, objections, and fear of rejection is paramount to having ownership over your situation. So storytelling is such a valuable tool, and that's why I teach it before anything else. Because when we master language, we master storytelling, the retail then follows very naturally as a progression through that. So just to give you an outline and to break this down for you, if we were to weave storytelling into our conversations in our spas, one would be the welcome conversation. And this is not welcome, what a lovely day, have you come from far, small talk. This is hardcore, let's build emotional safety with our client or guest. Let's share something of ourselves, let's add value, and vice versa. And I do this in module 1 and also in module 2. It's called the stepping out statement, and I help the team build that themselves. The second thing that is most actionable and super imperative is the consultation. Now, in my consultation, of course, we ask about the skin, we ask about what's going on with someone, but it's far more about lifestyle. It's far more about feelings. It's about what is someone going through in that moment, not just their skin type. And that's very important, because we talk about wellness, and spas plug in millions of pounds into a holistic journey with the best pools and the best saunas and the best technology. But do we invest in the ability for our team to emotionally connect? And I challenge us, I don't think we do. So it's much more about that. It's about having that connection to your therapist. It's about understanding that this is a treatment journey I'm going on, and I want to come back to these spas. Spas, even if they're 2-3 hours away from someone, doesn't have to be a destination for a particular engagement or a birthday or an anniversary or a wedding or an event. If we build emotional connection, people will come to our spas regardless of distance, because there is something that they're getting from us they're not getting from anywhere else, from other salons or spas. And that's really important. The third thing I would say is the treatment dialogue, or the way that we're using words. Is how we share our product stories, is how we talk about utilizing tips and we weave them in real time, again, reflecting to things that work for us and our clients in the past. And fourth, I do this a lot in module 3 and module 2, is reconfirmation. It's the same art as what the doctor does with us when we go to the doctors and we ask for a prescription. And reconfirmation is a very powerful exercise that allows us to link in our authority, our recommendations, but also our client and guests acknowledging that that's what they need. And when they do that, they have sold them those products to themselves, if that makes sense. And what we do is, within these kind of 4 points, if you like, and there's more, but for the interest of time today, I'm only going to talk about those. Storytelling allows us to create this complete journey where you can move from your conversation, your stepping out statement, to your consultation, to the treatment dialogue, your reconfirmation, before you even get them on the bed. And this only takes 2 to 3 minutes. It is so imperative to get this moment done. The amount of times that I see someone, and I mystery shop, so I go to particular spas that I'm working with perhaps, and I'll experience the customer journey. And the therapist is exceptional. They're wonderful, they're great, they ask the right questions, the consultation is usually very rushed, and then they say, okay, they want to get you on the bed as quickly as possible, which is absolutely right. We're paying our money for that, I get it. But I feel like the value and the emotional connection and the soul sometimes isn't present. There have been times where I've been at a spa before, and someone has pushed all the way back, and they've got a little board and they're going through their consultation. They're reading off, and I'm about 4 foot away, and I'm wondering, why are they so far from me? What's the fear of creating that connection? And when we have storytelling, it allows all of that conversation to really, really flow. So I want to kind of share with you a case study, which we did. So this is the Grove Hotel in Watford, just outside London, and this is quite a spa where the England football team go, and they have very high profile clients. These are some of their therapists, and they approached me after speaking at Spa Life one year, and this is actually how Retail Excellence was born. And they said, how can you help us? Can you help us with our retail? So I said, yes, but I'm not sure yet, because trainers come in and they do retail training. And I wanted to create something completely different. I wanted to teach the art of storytelling, but also allow the team to use language and the tools themselves to better their understanding. So it's not robotic, for them to be excellent communicators, for them to build confidence within themselves and actually create a harmonious environment where retail wasn't silly, but all they were doing was sharing their passion, their love, and telling stories with their clients. So I sat down and I created the beta version of Retail Excellence. And it was really interesting because they were great therapists. They actually scour from Thailand and from Asia to bring the most incredible holistic trained massage experts to the UK. And I've had many treatments with them, and they really are absolutely incredible. And where it was lacking was just some of that walkthrough in terms of that retail piece. So everything else, they had their ducks in a row, was absolutely fantastic. So I sat down and I wrote the first module of Retail Excellence. And as you can see, I took a picture here of module, I think that's module 2, or no, it's module 1, I can't even see, module 1, where we first started the first day. And I love having that picture, because there is a transformation between day 2 and day 3, depending on what teams they are as well. And we train them in conversational storytelling. They linked the product to feeling and outcome, and through the training, we actually empowered the therapists to use their own words and not memorize lines. So even though they were, selling wonderful brands, some with a very high price point, and they were using branded language that they were trained by the brand, they were using storytelling from a very personal way, which was very personal and centered for them. And this was really important because it didn't come across as robotic. It came across as authentic. And I'm sure you guys would agree with me, when something is authentic, you build that connection to that individual the best. And I'm going to give you an example of this. Sometimes when I'm talking at seminars or, when I'm on stage, and some of the questions that I get asked are, well, what was one of the best levels of service you ever had? And I think back to when I was buying batteries at Poundland, and I'm not joking. And there was this wonderful woman on the tills, and it was super busy. And she kept a smile on her face. She said, "Don't worry, we'll be with you in a minute. Someone's coming to the desk to serve. Don't worry." So she commanded the area. If you think she was front of house, she commanded the area, completely smiley, and yet she still took her time talking to people. How are you? What are you doing today? It's a lovely day. Oh, I bought that. That's wonderful. So we got to the till, and I heard her having these wonderful conversations with someone. I was with my husband, and she asked me about myself, and she commented, actually, I think, on my skin. And then I said, "Oh, well, thank you." And she asked me what product I was using, and we just created this amazing conversation. And then when she said, "Oh, by the way, we have batteries today. We're doing 2 for £1 instead of 1 for £1. Do you need any?" I said to myself, actually, I don't need batteries, but do you know what? I might need batteries in a couple of months. So I bought 2 lots. So even though it was £1, usually when you get to a till point, someone says, "Do you need anything from here?" And you sit there like, "No, I'm okay, thank you." And they do it to tick a box. What she gave was impeccable service. She was creating emotional connection. She didn't even realize she was doing it. I think it was just who she was. And she was telling stories and yet trying to understand my story at the same time and connected with me. And as a result, she asked me to purchase very quickly. I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll take it." And that was probably one of my best retail experiences ever because of how friendly she was. And this is what I'm trying to get across. It doesn't matter the price point. It doesn't matter the people who are there. It is how they create that environment. So module 1, we taught, and since then we've beta tested Retail Excellence. It's done really, really well. And our results were 120% increase in retail within 6 months. Now, Retail Excellence has now gone on to be Habia endorsed. It's the first retail training program to ever be endorsed by Habia. And that's because we had real, tangible, physical results that were long-term and yet kept on getting higher and higher, because as a team member became more conversational and utilized the art of storytelling, they became more engaged, they became more confident. And with that, they pushed their boundaries even more. And it was such a wonderful thing to see, because I wanted to create something that created retail sales, but actually what we created was a confidence booster. We created something that engaged therapists, that grew them, that nurtured them, that said to them, this is a tool for you to grow as an individual, to check your mindset, to understand the dynamics of what you're thinking about, and to use language in a way to build better client relationships that allows you to feel happier and more secure in your environment, but also for you to all function better emotionally together. And then through storytelling, clients actually started to ask for product use within treatment. So we actually doubled their conversion rate and more than doubled their retail turnover. So that's just one case study from that. And when people say, what are you the most proud of? I'm proud about the growth in the therapists. I'm proud because we invest in the education in terms of product, ingredients, brand, treatment, making sure that they are fully qualified to do treatment, but we don't invest in them as people, in their confidence, in the way that they build conversation and in the way they build emotional connection. And for therapists who stutter or are triggered, quite frankly, by having to have difficult conversations with clients who don't feel that they have the value of being the authority to say, no, you actually need to use this to get the results that you need. That's what made me feel so fulfilled to see them grow and develop as individuals. It's the thing that I'm the most proud of. And I get emotional with it because I am an emotional person. But equally, seeing their growth and their development is really what really made me so heart-led and wanted to tell their stories also. So I'm very passionate, as you can see, and I just want to give you some story structure that you can utilize within your spa conversations. And you don't need to memorize a pitch. You just need to create a very light framework. And this is a very simple structure that you can absolutely use. And the first thing is, and again, in Storyseller, when I work with businesses and entrepreneurs, teaching them to sell with authenticity through storytelling, I always say, why do you love what you do? And for our therapists, why do you love what you do? Why do you love that product? Why do you love that treatment? Share with me your authentic reason. So for instance, if you are looking at this mask, I don't have a mask here, it's actually some supplements, but if we're looking at a mask, for instance, I love this mask because it always calms my own skin. It reduces my redness. It makes me more confident. Now, that is more powerful than me saying this has hyaluronic acid in and it's going to plump your skin and reduce wrinkles. It's also got vitamin C, which is antioxidant. So the first way of saying something is so authentic and so heart-led because you're connecting yourself to something. Secondly, we don't do this in spa, which was really interesting to me. We forget the facets, and I teach something called the facets of skincare. When we talk about skincare, we talk about the layers that it has, the value that it has to someone. So the ingredients and the results are one layer, but equally how it feels, the texture is another layer. How it absorbs on the skin is another layer. The smell, so if it does have fragrance, and usually within spa, we use more naturalistic products, we create that holistic journey. So products do have some fragrance, naturally derived, and that is a part of feeling cocooned. It's feeling very sensually attached to the products that we're using to create that holistic environment. And we don't touch about smell. Sometimes we talk about smell very top line. We say, yes, it's got a lovely rose scent. That's great, but how does that rose scent make you feel? So educating on sensory and emotional language. So for instance, it's velvety, it smells like a garden after the rain, it invigorates and instantly creates a soothing effect on your skin. All we're doing is we're leveling up the language and we're creating the want and the desire because we're painting a picture through storytelling. And equally, when we think about results, sometimes we're very matter-of-fact about results. Targets fine lines and wrinkles, it reduces wrinkles by 32% or whatever. sometimes we have to go a little bit deeper in terms of the emotion. And we're not saying that we can't use the clinical results as standard, but we want to unpick these and unravel these a little bit more. So for instance, results that we could fit into their world could be, you feel like your skin's had a full reset every time you use it. It really helps to calm you. It will aid sleep with that beautiful lavender. And goodness knows we all need more sleep. And, something like that, that's more conversational. So it's really beautiful. When we use stories, we replace pressure, and clients absolutely remember how we made them feel within that moment. And we think of retail as being transactional, but I like to think of it as being transformational. We think of retail as being an add-on. And the most successful businesses that retail, whether it's spa or salon or indeed retail, they understand that retail is a part of transformation. Spa is not cheap, right? Let's be honest. If we want to go for a day to use the amenities, the pool, the sauna, have a few treatments, we're looking at a few £100 at least. If we're looking for a nice massage or a treatment, we're hitting the £100 mark. And we have to be really honest. Clients that can't afford spa and can't afford product cannot afford spa. They cannot come or visit. And a lot of times I speak to therapists and they say, well, they spent this much on a treatment and they said they were using creme de la mer and La Prairie, therefore I didn't recommend any product. Now, what we need to think about is if our clients and our guests have still got a concern or a cause for a concern, we have an obligation to recommend aftercare to deliver results. And equally, we can build in holistic results at home that improves their spa or wellness journey next time they come. And we do look at this also. And the most successful spas will need to understand that retail is a part of the transformation conversation. And by using storytelling, we're actually building emotional resonance within the products. We're encouraging clients to continue their aftercare at home, but equally we are empowering our therapists to extend their own influence, their own creativity, their own authority beyond the treatment room, because they are now planning that guest journey for wellness or for transformation for a longer period of time. And they're saying to a guest subconsciously, I'm here for you. You are on this journey with me, and I'm going to ensure that we deliver you the best result. And in order to achieve this, you need to start using A, B, and C. And that's really beautiful, because we're now taking spa and we're elevating it to being come now and again to enjoy yourself, to being a ritualistic and integrity part of your wellness journey moving forward. And when retail is positioned as care and we extend it as such, we're not pushing products. We're actually creating the need and the want and the desire from the guest. We are framing it as retail and result driven. And then you're going to see guest satisfaction follow, and you'll see an increase in that, because there is a real tangible feeling that this spa is not just a transaction for a good time or when I need to relax. This spa is now part of my journey in wellness or my life. And that's a really powerful message. So I really want us to look at retail as a hugely powerful tool to transform. But the way we go about retail has to change from the old adage. Now, therapists are amazing because they are the tool for us to use to increase retail, but also to create storytelling, because they are a mouthpiece on the floor within our environments. And what we need to do is we need to empower our therapists. And again, I had a conversation last week about, well, we don't invest in therapists because there is huge staffing turnover. And I talk to people about this. There is a balance, there is a scale where we think about retention and we think about therapist turnover and we think about the value that they bring to the business, but also how much we're investing in them as an individual and what that ROI is going to look like. And I would say, if you invest in your therapist, if you pay them well, you invest in their education, not just treatment, but also their personal development as individuals, they are far more likely to stay loyal, and you'll have far less staffing turnover. In turn, that increases client and customer and guest satisfaction. The spa is seemingly made to look even better service-led because there's more consistency and continuity, and people trust things that are consistent and they build loyalty with that. So I think investing in individuals far exceeds the fear that we have of staffing turnover, because we will see an amplification in our return of investment in all areas, in terms of retail, in terms of client satisfaction. And every time we bring someone new on, we have to go through the same process of investing in new training, in treatments, and so on and so forth. So when we look at it on paper, it's actually probably cheaper to invest in the people that we have and keep them happy than let them go off, because we're trying to penny pinch or save finances but reinvest in a shorter timescale because of need. We need to get people on the ground who don't have the proper training or tools. That takes us a lot more time to get them to where they need to be. So for instance, I love to give therapists tools, and one of which I mentioned earlier, module 1 and module 2 of my course, is the stepping out statements. And it's for them to really build in those words to allow themselves to connect with their clients. So for instance, you can have it at the beginning or you can have it within the treatment. I chose this for you today because A, B, C, and D. Equally, you've got the sensory descriptions that we have. So you might have noticed the cooling effect is a botanical infusion, is doing A, B, C, and D, is allowing them to picture their senses at 360-degree points of view. We also have the treatment tie-ins. So this serum is what I used during the massage. It's what gave you that incredible glow. You can take it home with you. You'll see a different result day after day, and then come back and see me in 3 weeks. And of course, personal stories. I use this. I love this because, of course, finally, we've also got other client outcomes, which is very important. A lot of my clients use this. I love recommending this to my clients and my guests because they say, my skin's brighter after 3 days. So with these tools that we can build in, our therapists can create those effortless conversations and those storytelling moments that lead to confident recommendations. Now, I do a lot of work on the power of language. I do webinars and seminars just around language. And language is such an incredible tool for us to use. When we build richer vocabulary, we can build more emotional resonance. And there are certain things that we can use. I'm just going to touch on these today in the interest of time. But for instance, we can use words like grounding, cocooning, restorative, brightening, energizing, refreshing, velvety, radiant, silky. An exercise that I do with my spa therapists is I ask them to go away to swallow a thesaurus and come back to me with better ways of describing products. So in terms, they'll say, oh yeah, this is lovely and hydrating. Hydrating. But, you know, what does that mean? What is the emotional language that resonates? How can we exemplify hydration in other facets? So it's all about using words that naturally build on product experiences to build emotion, but also build loyalty. So I'm sure I've already spoken about this, but here's a group. This is actually Cal. So this is Cal Brands, Kerasil Goldwell Orbe. And I was commissioned last year to work with their European, Middle Eastern and African trainers to educate them in the art of storytelling to build back to their team in their salons. And this was really important because some of these products were also used within the spa settings, but there is a huge crossover between spa and salon, absolutely. And traditional training really focused on features, and I wanted to really rewrite that rule book. And the training that we gave them was really emotional intelligence. It was conversation with confidence to build back. I think this training was also in Dusseldorf. So we did a 3-module with them in Dusseldorf, in Rome, and it was really beautiful. Being able to travel these places and work with these incredible people. And also being able to harness the power of storytelling, which I love so much, to give them practical uses to utilize stories and not just ingredient knowledge. And the best outcomes really do happen when we allow therapists to become themselves, and we equip them for that, which is super important. So if I was to give you 3 things to start doing today, is understand that your consultation is probably more important from a mindset shift and a emotional perspective than the actual treatment itself. So lead with feelings, not facts. So try to think about how to build that personal depth and build that into every single consultation. Instead of when we're talking about product description, think about how we can elevate that language. It's all about the emotional connection that we're building in. So instead of saying this is hyaluronic acid, talk about things like it's a drink of water for the skin. It's going to immediately plump and re-moisturize and give you the most phenomenal glow. Also reconfirm with intention. So this is what I use because it calms redness quickly. I recommend this to all my clients, and I swear by this product. It's going to do such a host of good things for your skin. And use those 3 shifts because they lead to big changes. Now, I'd love to take a moment and I'd love to share with you a story. And I want to take you to the rolling hills and valleys of Bulgaria. And in Bulgaria, there lives this incredible rose, which has been cultivated and brought over from the Persian times, where in Persia it was used by the princesses of the Persian Empire because they used to adorn themselves with the perfume of Bulgarian rose. And Bulgarian rose is such an unusual flower because it enjoys only really drained soils. It doesn't like moisture-rich or waterlogged soils. And as an unusual flower, it only blooms for 2 weeks of the year. And as you walk up the valleys in Bulgaria, you have these plumes of these beautiful, rich, plump pink petals that are so vibrant. And as you're walking through the perfumed air, it is the most incredible scent. It is sensual, but it's not heady like normal rose. It is honeyed and earthy, very different to normal floral rose or how we think about rose scent. Now, Bulgarian rose is so delicate, and something very special happens only for 2 weeks of full bloom. Bulgarian rose is actually hand-picked, and up to 50 years ago was only hand-picked by women because their body temperature is 0.25 of a degree, slightly cooler than men's. And between the hours of 5:30 and 6:30 in the morning, which is a 1-hour window, the Bulgarian rose is lovingly hand-picked, its petals, and it is hand-picked at dawn because that beautiful dew off the mountains is still right on the petals, and it is the right temperature not to disturb the molecules that create Bulgarian rose oil. Now, gram for gram, Bulgarian rose is more expensive than gold because the process is to take the Bulgarian rose and to cold press it. And within that cold press, we create within 24 hours Bulgarian rose oil. Now, Bulgarian rose oil is then used because of the most incredible scent profile in some of the most expensive fragrances in the world. Through the extraction process, we cultivate Bulgarian rose essence, which is a gorgeous water. It has a phenomenal amino acid complex that is anti-aging, building collagen and elastin within the skin. It creates the most abundant, beautiful, brilliant, bright, glowing skin. And it is used in some of the best skincare in the world. Now, that's my story of Bulgarian rose. If I was to ask you if I had some Bulgarian rose essence with me today, how many of you would pay £30, £50, £100? And if you're thinking I would pay £100 for that essence, then that goes to show you the value of storytelling. When you take someone on a journey and you cultivate their imagination and you allow them to connect emotionally with a product by talking about one angle and you connect yourself with it, the possibilities are absolutely endless. And I share this story because it creates such an indelible impact on people when they realize how powerful storytelling is. And when I share it in my seminars, people still have their hands. I think someone wants to pay once $300 for this Bulgarian rose essence because of how we built this story around it. And storytelling really is fundamental. And when we crack it and we harness it, it can completely transform our businesses. So final thought within our spa industry is that the best sales don't feel like selling at all. They feel like being seen and understood. Even our most challenging clients want to feel as though someone holds them in their hand and their expertise can guide them to delivering the results that they want. They want to be trusting, they want to be seen and understood, and they want to trust our recommendations, but that can only come from the authority that we represent. Equally, what we need to do is extend treatment into an experience of everyday life. And we need to teach therapists how to use storytelling from a place of truth, care, and connection, not just to improve their retail sales. And through this, we'll not only transform our team members to having articulate, confident team members who can deal with objections, who can reconfirm, who can build stories, but equally, we can transform our client experience and we can level up the level of service we have and the luxury we have within our spas. So let's think about storytelling as an incredibly viable tool. Let's level up how we treat retail with respect. And let's think about education and the next level of education that we need to do to ensure that we are commercially successful, but we are creating an incredible wellness journey within our industry. And let's move beyond the shelf. So thank you so much for your time today. My name's Arif Isikgun. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would love you guys to just take your phone, scan the QR code, and I would love to welcome any questions.
Arif, thank you so much. I learned an incredible amount. You know, I think I'd always focused on a little bit of consultation and a lot of the sale at the end. And when you've twisted it on it and turned it on its head upside down and brought the consultation to life, I think you're right. I think we don't spend enough time emphasizing the consultation. I think that's probably for me one of the big takeaways, obviously around the whole storytelling piece, but also the actual, perhaps we're looking at it the wrong way round and we focus too much on the end and not on the beginning, and let alone the numbers that you can make if you say £50, like you said, from one therapist, and how that accumulates towards the end of year financial goals. I think it's a missed opportunity, 100%.
Amazing, thank you. I'm going to ask you, Sarah, what was your limit? How much would you spend on that Bulgarian Rose essence? What would you get up to?
I don't know if it came with the holiday to go and pick the rose.
Wow. Oh God. That could be something we could do.
You had me there thinking I really want to go there and do this. For me, that's what I really like, is like bringing it to life. I would say like 40, 50, 60 pounds.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I think as well, you get the person in there and they're thinking, oh, I really want that experience of being the person that picks it. And
yeah,
that's why a lot of the product houses are now bringing it back to where they get their ingredients from as well, aren't they? You know, saying, well, this is the product, this is the products in the bottle, but actually we get our ingredients from here. And they're trying to bring the ingredients, I think, a little bit more to life. And people don't really know what hyaluronic acid is, do they? So you can go on and on about that in a bottle, but actually quench your skin's thirst is far more powerful.
It is. It is. You know, it's so true. And we do ask a lot of our therapists, but actually it's an avenue of creativity. It's an avenue for them to express language in a different way, and to cultivate their individuality, which I love.
It's way less stressful. They don't have to think about 30 ingredients. They just remember why they like that product, or why they heard that product was great, or what the story is. So it actually makes it a less stressful environment.
I think so. I agree. And I think, you know, when I was thinking about, you know, training and the education piece with therapists, I really turned on our classic models of retail on its head. And I just wanted, you know, to think that we are in an era where people are vying and crying out for emotional connection. People want to feel they're heard, they want to build communities, and they want to find their tribes. So why can't we deliver that in spa? And, you know, I've been to a lot of spas, I'm not naming names, and they're excellent, they are incredible, but they're cold. And some of them they don't have the soul.
Yeah. But that's driven by budgets, though, isn't it? Get people in and through, and that's why we don't necessarily have the time for the consultation, because you still in that slot got to deliver that treatment. So I think there's like a bigger picture, even maybe up to like general managers and managers, saying actually you're focusing on the treatment revenue, you're squishing down the amount of time a therapist has because you're seeing this treatment revenue picture. Actually, what you need to do is, when you look at the maths,
yes,
15 minutes more to be able to do a thorough consultation and spend quality time with the customer, the guest, and actually do that story selling is actually going to get you this much revenue, compared to what you're seeing, which is this many treatments a day is going to get me, and not actually adding on the retail.
Yeah, retail could really transform your business. You could scale up to 500,000, 250,000 really easy.
Yeah, well, I spoke to And cruise ship retail is a big figure.
It is a huge figure, but they are a bit hard sale, I think.
I was literally about to say, on the other side of that, I used to deal with the account management between the cruise line and the provider, and the feedback would be hard sell. And I think that people are savvy now and don't want to pitch. They don't want a hard sell. They don't want you to have not listened. They don't want you to not know who they are. And saying this pot of cream, take it, it'll make your skin better, doesn't resonate anymore.
It doesn't.
No. And I think that's why that style of selling is very old school now. And we need to look at a newer way of selling, but also, like you say, the language piece. If people on their phones, social mediaing and on Instagram and things, they're not necessarily able to communicate. You have to have some communication training.
Most definitely. Yeah.
And does anyone else have any other questions? Sorry, I could chat about this. Happily harp on about it.
Not a question as such, but that was the best hour I have spent in a long time listening to you, Arif. I could do it all day. I was writing notes so fast. There was smoke coming off my pen. So inspiring. One, I'm guilty. I go in there, I train, I talk about product, ingredient, and what it does. Now I'm going to not focus on the what and the why so much, but more of the wow and that emotional connection. So guilty of that. When I'm retailing, I will absolutely, or in a retail environment, I'll absolutely talk about my own experience of using a product. But I don't do that for spas because somewhere in my mindset, I think they want the technical information.
Yeah.
They don't. They want the storytelling.
They do.
I've bought your book. I followed you on Instagram. Not Instagram. What's it? LinkedIn, the professional one. Best hour. Well done. Well done, Sarah, for getting in. That was amazing.
Thank you.
That's really kind. That's so sweet. Thank you, Sam. Don't make calling you Sam, do you?
Yeah, no, I'm Sam. Unless you tell me.
Amazing. Thank you. That's really lovely feedback. You know, it's quite hard when you push against the industry, because I'm a disruptor. And I told to Sarah, like, my goal is to I'm one person, but I'm really passionate, and I've seen such incredible changes. And, you know, it's about getting the general managers, the hoteliers to understand sometimes that we need to invest in our people. And actually the key to wellness is creating emotional connection. It's not the latest tech. It's that human presence. Yeah. It's how we connect through stories. And it sounds really like blasé, but it's actually an amazing moneymaker if people allow it in. But yeah, for me, it's really important for that connection piece. I really appreciate your feedback, and I'm so glad that hopefully added some value.
Absolutely.
I love that you enjoyed it so much.
Thank you.
But, you know, don't compare that to I was cutting down the hedge before I started.
No, that's fine.
No, I really did. That was amazing.
Thank you. That's really kind. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Arif. Well, Arif, what a note. I'm not going to do anything else now. We're going to leave on that amazing high from Sam, I think. Like, what a compliment.
It was.
But thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I think you definitely do need to spread the word, and I hope the power of your book and everything else that you're doing really does get people to look at how they retail. Because I think you're right, it's time for disruption, and I am a fellow disruptor, and I love it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. So